us pray. We thank you, O God, that we are here with friends at church, remembering that you are the source of all our good. You give us hope. You give us a future. And we thank you that we can gather to share our thoughts. Guide us by your Spirit. Show us the way, even as you are the way and the truth and the life. Thank you we're here, and thank you for your constant presence through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Those of you online. When Ted first, not Ted, but Craig first approached me about, following up on my thought about doing this kind of a program, he said that I should just take 5 to 8 minutes to talk about our age 55 community and why my wife and I chose to live there. And I can boil that down into one sentence as far as why we chose to live there. And that's because my wife told me to. Good reason, but I will go through a few of the other reasons that we both agree with. But our community is traditions at Longwood. We're off 926 in Kennett Square. We have 300 individual homes, no apartments, no condos, and my wife and I have lived there since 2003. So let me begin by just talking briefly about what is an age 55 community. And as the name sounds, it's a group, it's a community that is made up of, for the homeowners, at least 80% of them must be age 55 or older. There's a federal criteria for making it that kind of a community. Most age 55 communities are set up and run by a homeowners association. And the associations are governed by local, state, and federal law, also bylaws that the homeowners association follows, and the residents elect a board of directors who follow through to make sure that all the regulations are complied with and manage the day-to-day operations. Homeowners associations have financial requirements. We're required to have a budget, we're required to set up reserves, and fund those reserves. We also have bylaws that each homeowner must abide by, so you read those before you buy a home in the community to make sure that you know that you're prepared to follow those bylaws. In return, the residents receive amenities and services. Okay, my wife told us this is where we're moving, but these are the considerations that we made on why we wanted to choose our age 55 community. And as I said, there's 300 homeowners, so there's roughly 500 people who live in our community. Because of our age similarities, we have similar interests, and there's just a lot of opportunities to socialize and get together. We also wanted a home that had the master bedroom and master bath on the ground floor. As we got older, we just felt like that was important to us. The homes are good value. As everyone knows, price of homes have gone up tremendously. Age, at least in our community, our age 55 community homes have kept up with the market, so I've been very, very pleased with that. We get many included services, which I'll go over, but we also selected it in our case because of the location. It's so convenient to all the things that are, important to us. Some of the services include just the day-to-day management of our community, but also planning the grounds, maintenance of our facilities, mowing and leaf collection throughout the year, trash collection, recycle, clubhouse cleaning, pool maintenance, snow plowing, driveway and walkways for the snow plowing. The city still does the streets, and architectural oversight and standards. Just some of the services. Social opportunities are so numerous. I'm not going to go into all of these. You can read the slide. I participate in a number of them, and I guess the main one that I do is golf. We have 3 golf leagues, but a lot of the women especially enjoy the book clubs or the card games that they play. We have Friday night socials, we have formal events throughout the year. And pickleball is becoming more and more popular in our community. Other amenities that we have are the library, reading room, clubs such as dinner club or travel. And we also have 2 community gardens for those who want to spend their time doing that. I'd rather play golf. As much as I like our community, I know that there's potential downsides. And so before you buy into an age 55 community with a homeowners association, you need to be willing to accept the rules and bylaws. To me, they're all common sense bylaws. There's nothing that I would feel uncomfortable about, but some people might, and you should definitely look at the bylaws of any community that you might be thinking about. Another risk could be if your board is not really actively interested and just kind of lets things happen as opposed to be on top of it. Same way with financial funding and planning. Those are things that are really important. We pay our dues at where we are for 2022 will be $247 a month. We feel like that's a good rate for what we get in return. Another disadvantage could be low participation, and by that I mean volunteers. And we have roughly 15% of our residents volunteer, and not just occasionally. These are very active people throughout the year. So those are actually some of the strengths that I've already touched on, and why we live in our community. I'm not going to repeat those for you. This is a typical home. This home is almost 3,000 square feet, and that's without a basement. Most of the homes in our community do have basements, so that would add more square footage. One thing that you might be concerned about is, well, many of the homes do look very similar because there's maybe 5 to 10 different architectural plans, but they're all similar. So that is something that you have to accept. This is a picture of one of our clubhouses. We do have 2 in our case, but most communities would have just 1. And my last slide is the swimming pool area, and I chose it because I wanted to explain that I'm not doing a deep dive into everything to know about our community. This is just an overview, but if you have questions for me after the other panelists, I'll be glad to answer your questions. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
You betcha.
Good morning. My name is Rich Kane, and many of you might know me, but I've lived in the Westchester area for over 50 years. Came into Westchester in 1970 to accept a job offer. And my wife, Charlotte, and I have lived in Westchester for the entire time up to August 3rd of this year. When we decided to move to Calhoun. It was a tough decision to move. Okay, we lived in downtown Westchester for 20 years and walked everything. Now we're in Honeybrook. You know, the only thing you can walk to is some of my neighbors' farms. But I think I'm going to try to give you an unbiased opinion. And I really appreciate what Dan said, because there's so many things. We've been there since August 3rd, so we don't know everything. But what we know so far, we love. Let me switch here. Why did we choose to take a lifestyle that we loved and move to Honeybrook? And I don't know if you know where Honeybrook is, but it's about 40 minutes if you're lucky and traffic's not bad. And we still love Westminster, so we're faced with that decision. But the main thing it came down to, approximately 4 years ago, we were talking and we said, what's going to happen to us in 5 or 10 years? We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. I had a serious health issue 5 years ago, and now, with Lord's help, I am back to fairly good health. But what's going to happen? And we've known so many people, family members, non-family members, that something severe happened to their life, and they had to look for an emergency situation took, and they had to find a place where they could get care. And my own mother actually had to move 3 times to different nursing homes until they actually got it right. So we wanted to do a little bit of investment, and nobody knows what's going to happen to you in the future. So we wanted to kind of make our own decisions, even though we trust our son. He always said as a threat, he said, Dad, remember, I'm choosing your nursing home. So we forgot about that. So anyway, the big thing is we wanted to make sure if we had an emergency, we had plans for it. And unlike the 55 residents, Hotel High can take care of you. We're an independent living in a cottage, but it has personal care, skilled care, memory care, and there's a place for you to go to move forward. I said the last thing is, remember there are waiting lists. Hotel High has over a 3-year waiting list. Okay, that's good and bad. Good thing is, hey, you really have to. We put our application in, but we had 3 years to change our mind, right? We didn't sign anything that was good. You don't have to take any cottage. You don't have to take an apartment. The second thing is, just gave us 3 years to downsize. You know, people don't want your furniture. just to let you know,
Especially the kids.
the size of our cottage, which is adequate, is 1,500 square feet. Okay, so we got rid of couches, a desk, things like that. And there is a delay, but I like the delay for another reason. It shows that where we're going is a popular place to go. People have heard about it, the reputation precedes itself. Here. Why Tell High? I've just jotted a few things down. It's a faith-based community, which we love. Okay. It's a rural setting. It's surrounded by Amish farms. We have a view. Our cottage overlooks a lake where there's swans, geese, herons, things like that. Love it. There's several housing options, both apartment and individual cottages, and to meet your needs. There are 900 and some residents right now. Another thing we like, there's a reasonable application fee. I can tell you it's $250. $250. I go to the mall and throw $250 by accident. So we weren't afraid. I know some of the places you have to put an application fee could be up to $5,000, but it's added to your first month's payment or taken away from your first month's payment. But if you don't have that first month payment, you go to another place, $5,000 to something I'm not ready to lose. And the monthly costs vary. Ours is under $2,000 a month, includes all the amenities. They do everything. They don't want you touching anything in your cottage or apartment. They have maintenance people come and do that. Love it. I love that. They even came and hung our pictures for us. And so Charlotte wasn't saying, that's not in the meadow. We were never in the good more. And like I said, the wait list is good and bad. And we just were glad to know that people still want to move forward. And I was talking to somebody, one of my pickleball friends, and he's been on the wait list for 3 years for an apartment. And he says maybe another year.
Rich, did you want to go back to that other
Oh,
slide?
I'm sorry, what did I do?
There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna go into that. So our experience since August 30th, we have found many friendly neighbors. Just tremendous.
Yeah, I know a lot of them too.
There's plenty of opportunities to socialize. I joined a veterans group and they have neighborhood get-togethers. And one thing, I made it my plan to ask everybody individually and in the group, how do you like Telhai? They've been there 10 years. Not one person so far has said they disliked it. And I said, and I said this to the veterans group, and a lot of people are actually a lot of older World War II vets and things like that, and Korean War vets. I said, old people love to complain. And the fact that you guys can't sit here and say, oh, I don't like that they don't show my driveway enough or quick enough. It's amazing. Nobody's had one complaint. But
That's because all the discontented people already moved out.
yeah, so yeah, no, usually when you move out of there, it's one way. The planned trips, there's plenty of planned travel. There's a minister there, Dr. Young might know him, Dave, and I forget his last name, but he's actually has a trip to the Holy Land every year. And there's people, they just do local trips to anything. So it's not all sports-related activities. They're varied. I just started playing pickleball, and the people are actually kind of nice to me, even though I've been playing for 10 years. They don't criticize me too much. And Charlotte's been involved in water aerobics. There's speaker series, there's movie nights, things like that. And what they told us, if you come to Telhai and you don't see something that you're interested in, and you have another interest, start a club. Start something yourself. And people have done that. Staff is friendly and responsive to our needs. Several team members met with us when we moved in and provided an orientation on what they did and how you can get in touch with them. There's a maintenance request that's online and really quick. They're quick and they're thorough. Oh yes, we have a caseworker. Every family has a caseworker, and she visited us. And I saw her about a week ago, just walking to get my mail. And I walked by her and she goes, "Hi, Mr. Kane." I had a mask on. She has about 450 residents and she remembered my name. Amazing. Next to her, I don't have pictures of the facility. Telhai has a wonderful online website. So I didn't take any pictures, but I thought I'd take a couple of pictures of my neighbors. See the lake and the swans and the geese. Right now, I don't know why the geese, they're there in the hundreds. And there's a Amish farm horse. And one morning, about 3 weeks ago, I went out on my patio And that was the picture I saw. And if you can see, there's a lake back there. And that's beautiful. And I just love it. So thank you.
Shut this down. Gary, you want to go here, Gary? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Gary Boyd, and I have been living at Maris Grove for just a little over 3 years. And it's a 62-year and older community. I mean, it fits within the laws of the 55 and older community, but you have to be 62 to move in. And they won't waive that 62 either, because when we were getting ready to move in, there was another woman that had already spoken for an apartment, and we were moving in October, and they told her that she couldn't move in until she was 62, which was the next February. I was surprised they didn't waive it for that, something that close, but they wouldn't let her move in until she was 62. Well, there's one thing that I guess one of the biggest reasons why we moved into Maris Grove was I had a massive stroke in 2014 and colon resection and a long recovery, which the doctors weren't expecting that I would recover, but I did. And I found that after my stroke and I had recovered, that it was very difficult for me to meet my commitments to maintaining the yard and the any repairs to the house and stuff like that. So I was looking for a place to where I wouldn't have to do those things. And I believe that all of them that are being spoken about today would meet that requirement. They do all the maintenance, all the maintenance on the buildings, both inside and outside. Also, another consideration was the medical department. They have a clinic there at Maris Grove where you can go, and they have 3 doctors, and I think they have I think 3 doctors, and that doesn't include Rose Court, which is a special place for, it's kind of like a nursing home, Rose Court, for people that need much more care. And I was actually in there for 8 days after my heart surgery. I had open heart surgery, and they did 4 procedures, and that's where I did my recovery. And they have a medical staff, and we use one of the doctors that is on the staff there. And I mentioned Rose Court, and it's like a nursing home or increased or advanced care. And another thing that really impressed me was the clubs and activities. There are over 100 clubs at Maris Grove of all types. I mean, you got fishing clubs, bridge, chess, travel. I mean, they're just, and some of them have several clubs. Like I think there's 3 bridge clubs, of which we belong to one, because, and it's nice too, because the one we belong to is what I would call party bridge. You didn't have to be a real good bridge player, and you talk during the hands and all that kind of stuff. And in serious bridge, you don't do that. But, so it fits us well. The management at Maris Grove is Erickson Living. It's a company that manages, I'm not sure how many, but probably 8 or 10 communities throughout the United States that they manage. And the leader of our community at Maris Grove, we call her the mayor. She's not a mayor, but we call her the mayor, and she doesn't mind it. And there's a closed circuit TV there also, which myself and my wife Barbara, we run the connection between Westminster and Maris Grove for the Sunday church service. And it's, you can just get up in the morning and turn your TV on, turn it to
1970.
Yeah, 1970, channel 1970, and the service will come on. And Barb and I run that every other month. The other month, someone else takes that responsibility to bring that service into Maris Grove. And another thing that's impressed me is they have rather nice grounds. I mean, shrubs, flowers, trees, well manicured lawns and all that. And it's just a pretty setting to be living in. They also have a fishing pond. There's another club called, they have a fishing club, but primarily they just catch fish and throw them back. And there's lots of turtles in that pond too. And then every once in a while across the pond, you may see a blue herring wading and doing his own fishing. And also another thing too that I like and is really nice in the winter is if you want to go from one place to another place in Maris Grove, you can do it all indoors. All the buildings are connected by walking bridges. I mean, enclosed walking bridges. So if you want anywhere, if it's bad weather out, raining, super cold, windy, you can get from anywhere in Maris Grove to anywhere else by walking inside. Now, in some cases, walking outside would be a shorter walk. But if you don't want to go out in that weather, you can just get there inside. And also, they have shuttle service, which runs around the campus. And I don't know the frequency of how often it comes by. And the reason why I don't know that is we don't use the service. We walk wherever we go. And but there are some people that's difficult for them to do. So they have shuttle service that picks them up and takes them from building to building. Also, another thing too that is very important is the contract that you sign when you move in to Maris Grove, and I'm sure all the communities have that contract. And for us, we like the fact that we get back 90% of our initial cost if we choose to move out, or when we die, the estate gets 90% of that cost back. There was another thing.
We never get kicked back either.
Oh yeah, that's another thing too. With that contract, if we were to run out of money, we don't get kicked out of the community. And if we need to have that special additional care, say at Maris Grove, and we don't have the money, then we still can stay there until we die and not be kicked out. And that's another nice thing to know. And I think that's all the bullet points I wrote.
Gary,
Yes.
Gary, how many units are there in Maris Grove? And buildings?
There are about 1,700 people at Maris Grove. And so you divide that by 2, and that would be probably very close to the number of units there. And I think they still have the room to build one more building. And another thing too, these are not single homes, they're apartments. And you don't own your apartment. You can't. They won't. You're not allowed to own your apartment. So that's in a way that's a good thing. In a way, maybe it's not. And in a way that it might be a good thing is there's no consideration of having to sell it, or your heirs have to sell it after you die. It's that 90% of what you put up front will go into the to your yeah, state. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Well, I thought I would just say a little what prompted us to go. My wife and I, Louisa, died in March of this last year, and we live at a rather small retirement community on Boot Road called the Wellington Hall at Hershey Mill. It's, I say small, we have 3 floors of residence and 65 places on each floor. Some of the apartments are with just one person and some with couples. There is also a assisted living, and that's connected internally. And we used to have a nursing care. In fact, Louisa was in that for about 3 months when we first went. But they have done away with that, and instead they're opening a memory unit, which they have reasons for economically, and also the people that will need that are more than the people that will need the nursing home, so they said. Well, now I'm 93, and memory going back is very spotty. It's amazing things that I don't remember. But I was trying to think of why we first decided to consider a resident care. Well, that would be 11 years back in the, well, you figure it out. I think we were probably in our 70s, and there were 2 experiences that told both of us that it might be nice to start looking around. And I think your topic here is very important, because I guess you're all at least the 55 and over, and the 60s, 70. That is, even if you decide to stay put and do your maintenance, do your cooking, do your whatever, it's good to go back and forth on it and change if you need to, but be confirmed in what you're deciding. And also that husband and wife agree on what was needed to be done. We had an experience with Louisa's parents that Dr. Grace, he was pastor at the same church for up to 40 years. And the manse, the house where the minister lived, was right next to the church. And Mrs. Grace was really a staff member too, though you didn't call her. In older days, I think when a church called a minister, they got 2 for 1, and because the wife usually had the same views and participated in the church, and I know Mrs. Grace did, and Louisa certainly did. And Mrs. Grace was a collector. I mean, she did the Vacation Bible School. She did Sunday school. She did women's Bible teaching, mission trips, and she was a collector. And I remember working into the night when they moved from that next door to the church. We were responsible for downsizing. And I remember finding my way in the cellar, winding through papers, piles of papers. I remember bringing things down from the attic, egg cartons with beads, and, pictures, games, anything that might be useful in the church. That was there for use when you didn't know when you needed them. And I worked. I remember some nights was 2 o'clock in the morning, and taking things down and then taking them over to the nearby community store area and a dumpster out back. And you shouldn't have done that. But I figured that man has done so much for this community. I did that. Well, the sin didn't bother me. But I did think to myself, I would like to spare my children the downsizing. And if we move to a retirement community, we have to then get rid of things. And maybe if we did it, it might save the children having to do it. And that probably is one main reason that we went. The other was thinking of your own health, and my health, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't basically good. And to have a place where the medical help was available and the nurse or doctor could be arranged easily, where food preparation, we get at our place 20 meals at a dining room a month. And that has helped. The food has been good. It has ups and downs over that period of time. And I think all the places have had trouble maintaining health in this COVID period and the after. And I talked to some of my friends here that are at Freedom Village, and I think maybe there have been weeks when they don't all go to the dining room, or they have other ways. But this has been a very hard time, I think, for all retirement communities maintaining health, and right, I don't know whether they should be judged severely on doing that. Well, let me see. I'm back in the 80s, and once we decided, yeah, I think it's about time to get rid of some of the, to downsize, not to worry about the out of doors, taking care of the house, to save the children. That was very much in the mind. Now, I don't know that we really saved them that much. They're going to have a lot. Well, they'll find out. looking around at places, I think every person or a couple have their own ideas what they want. I was a pastor here for 32 years in there, the church in Bernard, and somehow the Westchester area meant a lot to both of us, and so I think that would probably be one thing was in our mind. It had to be near. For instance, I think we looked at Shannondale. Do you know that name?
Yes.
Over near Valley Forge. And in fact, I think we even put a deposit down there. And then I thought of having to go up the 422 often. That was a deterrent. And also, it seemed at the time near Westchester, our two girls, we have 3 children, the 2 girls are in Westchester. And I realized, even though in miles it seems very close, I thought we needed something closer. So this will not work this will not be a deterrent for many, but for us, we wanted the Westchester area. And also, we wanted small, no, not small. We wanted it to be big enough to handle things that we needed, but not too big. And this is only personal, but Maris Grove is too big for us. Maris Grove is too big for us. Kendall Crosslands has one of the best reputations around for, they've been in business for so long. And there are a couple of communities along the 52 where many people, some of our best friends, moved in those communities where it was like a 55 plus, with the understanding that when they spent whatever time, they would probably go to Kendall Crosslands. I remember one of them was called Coniston. I don't remember what the other name was. It was
Cartmel.
Oh,
Cartmel.
Cartmel. Who said that? Okay, Cartmel. And we have been mostly the Cartmel, and they were lovely. They are lovely communities. I'm assuming they still are. But we didn't, that was again, getting out of where we really wanted to be. Well, anyway, we liked this Wellington at Hershey's Mill. They have an indoor pool, and I think there's a relationship between Wellington and the Hershey Mill Golf Club and all those villages around. There's a relationship between these two that we can use their pool and they can use our indoor pool in the winter. Okay, I guess I'm done more than 6 minutes worth. Oh my word, I'm so sorry. Well, all right, huh?
It's just like,
Oh,
it's
I'm Brandon.
hearing work.
I used to do that. No.
Beside you.
Leave some time for questions. It was very instructive hearing about all these other communities and the amenities and that sort of thing. I think most of the members of the fellowship, however, have so far decided to stay in their own homes. I'm not speaking for them. I'm speaking for my own situation. My wife and I have lived in our house for 22 years. It's a multi-level, so there are stairs that go up to the bedroom. About 5 years ago, we did go to Maris Grove, and we went through the tour and hear the story and all that. And we were impressed enough. I did put $1,000 down, and I'm on the waiting list. But it just seems that the time isn't right yet. So as we go forward, there are, you might know, my career was as a bean counter. So obviously I'm going to look at the financial aspect first, and then you get into the intangibles. So first thing you do financially is if you sold your house, can you make enough profit on it to pay for the initiation fee or the apartment fee at a place like Maris Grove? And since we own the house free and clear with no mortgage, that wasn't really a problem. So next you have to look at what the costs are. And I'm only speaking for Maris Grove. I think for a couple in well, they have different size apartments, so your fees are different. Let's say you take a middle-sized apartment. As I understand it, the costs are about $4,200 for a couple per month. So that's $50,000 a year. Now, how does that compare with what we're paying already? So, I've made a rough list of how much we spend a year for taxes and maintenance and updating things, plumbers, carpenters, whatever. And that only came to about $25,000 a year. So you have a $25,000 hit if we were to move into Maris Grove now. So how do the other factors and the intangibles equal that $25,000? Well, some of the adjustments we have to make is first you're moving into a smaller space. So as somebody mentioned, you have to get rid of my 2,000 history books and bookcases and extra couches and TVs and all sorts of things. You may be giving up certain hobbies, like, I like to putz around with some flowers and things like that. Unless you join the gardening club, you're not going to be able to do that. You're missing a heterogeneous age group. So we can walk in our neighborhood where Gary used to live. There's now a family with a little boy named Brooks, and you walk by and you wave to him, and he's playing with his toys and things like that. And you see other people like that if you're in a homogenous community, you're just going to see other old folks like such. We'd be missing things we take for granted, like going out on the patio and grilling, or sitting by the fireplace on a cold evening, because you can't have fires at a place like Maris Grove. There may be some living restrictions. I don't know, where you're not allowed to play loud music after a certain hour or something like that. These are things we have to investigate. We've heard about places where you can't vacuum before 8 a.m. in the morning and things like that. So they're all intangible things that keep you sort of rooted where you are. You may have to get new medical doctors if you move too far from the location where you're living now. A big thing we would miss at Maris Grove is there's no garages for your car. We love to, on a rainy day, you pull in, you're in your garage, you get out, you take your groceries 20 steps, put them in the kitchen. I don't know how many times I've had to go back to the car for a second load or whatever. Well, if that's 4 floors down and 100 yards into a parking lot, that's a problem, especially if it's inclement weather. I think you lose some privacy. We have a fence. We have open space next to us. you can relax a little bit that maybe you can't do in a retirement community because the neighbors are close to you. Everybody wants to be friendly, so knocking on the door every morning, have coffee, whatever. Family gatherings, if you have kids with grandkids and you need to have a Christmas celebration for 10 or 15 people, they may not fit into your apartment. You may have to try to book space in a community room. Now you've got 1,500 other people trying to book the space for Christmas Eve or whatever. I'd have to give up my West Town Historical Commission, which I started and I'm still a member of. If you move out of the township, goodbye to that hobby. There are other intangibles, of course, which sound really good. Group activities, travel groups, things like that. 100 clubs at Maris Grove. I'm sure there's a dozen of them I'd love to be a member of. You have a gym, you have a pool, you have a walking trail. You don't have to worry about traffic. As Gary mentioned, you can walk in the winter from building to building without ever going outside. I understand if your computer breaks down, there's an IT guy that can come by and fix your computer. I don't have to call my stepson who lives an hour away and decide when he can come by and reboot my computer. Another nice thing would be there's an emergency response. If you fall in the bathtub, especially if you're a single person, you can pull a cord. Medical people are there within minutes, whereas if you're living in your house, who knows how long it takes the EMT to get there from the time you call them. And the other nice thing is you have one level living. You don't have to go upstairs or down to the basement. So I think that the decision is maybe we'll all end up there someday, but what are your circumstances right now? Is the time right? And being on the list is a comfort, because I think I'd get priority the next time an apartment came open and we needed it. But right now, those are the reasons we're staying where we are.
We're going to ask all our presenters to turn their chairs around and answer any questions that you might have in the audience. Anything you want to ask them, directed to the group or to an individual person.
Is it our?
Are you going to
I
moderate?
have a question.
Moderate, Craig.
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
My question is, and I'm talking about, is the cost. Okay, I mean, I'm in a home, I'm in a rancher, small rancher, everything's on one floor. Of course, I broke my wrist working in the yard, so that was a message for me. But my question is that, you know, we paid off a mortgage years ago before we retired, and our costs in Westtown Township are not that much, tax-wise and all of that. The monthly fee, to me, if I had to pay that, I'd rather stay in my home and use part of that monthly fee to get a gardener, to have meals delivered to me, to use Uber if I can't drive any longer. So why, I don't have any desire to move because of that kind of combination of costs. I could do the same thing staying in my own home. So does that make sense?
Basically, that does, except we were looking at something severe health-wise.
Right.
Yeah, we took a beating because our mortgage was paid and we only had to pay taxes and a monthly HOA fee. But now we pay a monthly fee to Telhi based on the size of your residence. And we also had to pay a down payment to get in, even though we don't know. But we were looking at sort of this is an insurance policy, you know,
Right,
and
so
we were hoping that
health-wise,
health-wise, you're right. We took a beating. We was, about 60% of the value of our property went into the entrance fee.
right?
We sold, so,
Yes,
but anyway, you're right on that part.
okay.
Anybody else?
You're right in that you really have to decide for yourself when is the right time to move into one of these communities. And I think health plays a big role in that. To move into Maris Grove for an apartment the size that we had, it's about $500,000 just to move in. And then a little over $4,000 a month. And also you have to give all your financial information to Maris Grove and they'll decide whether you can move in or not. But yes, that is a decision, like Dave said, that has to be made by each individual or couple. And health is probably the biggest determinant.
I'd like to add one thing. Telhi was not that much. It was less than 300,000 to move down payment. But the big thing is you pay as you need. I don't know if I mentioned that. It was on my slide. Some places, I believe, and I'm not sure, are actually positive about this, but you pay a monthly fee, say $5,000. But if you go to a nursing facility or a long-term care facility or memory care, your rate doesn't go up. That still remains. But at Telhi, I can tell you, I pay about $1,500 a month, which isn't too bad. And I get a couple $100 in meals for that per quarter. But the thing is, if unfortunately you have to go into assisted living or skilled care, that's going to go up. Could be $8,000 to $10,000 a month. So depending on what the going rate is in those days. But we just took that opportunity. We'll pay as we go and hopefully nothing bad will happen, but there's a difference in the cost like that.
I hear about stay in your home services. I think the Quakers all did. Does anyone have any experience with that?
I don't want to dominate, but I used to work for the federal government and we had, it was called home care, community-based health care. It was sponsored by the federal government. And there's waiver programs in different states. And my, unfortunately, sister-in-law that passed away several years ago had MS, but lived in New Jersey. And she was able to get, through a home and community-based waiver, services to come in to take care of her in her home.
How did it work for her?
How did it work for her?
I mean, was it good quality?
It was spotty. My brother-in-law, who I called a saint at those days, he's not such a saint anymore. But, he was working full time, of course, and he would spend a good part of the day ensuring that his wife would have care while he was away. It all depends on, you depend on any kind of service you get. If you get a mechanic, is he going to be good there or whatever? And they had a great person for a couple of years and she went to a different job and all heck broke loose. So, but there is, and that's, I'm not trying to damn it. I'm trying to just say that's what my own experience was, but there are home and community-based waivers.
Thanks.
I was just going to say, I've learned a lot through my parents' experience. My mother just died in March at 99 and lived at Willow Valley my parents moved into Willow Valley in the least needy level of the assisted living progression 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, 1986, I think it was. And it was a great benefit to them. The average person lives in a continuing care place for 7 years, according to statistics I've heard. And my parents were there for over 30 years. So when my mother died in March in skilled nursing, well, we call it skilled nursing, the state calls it personal care. The biggest and my mother still only paid around $3,000 a month to be in skilled nursing because they got in so early and put their $300,000 deposit down in 1986. But I know that if you were to move into the Barclay Friends, for instance, directly into skilled nursing, it's $13,000 a month. So the number of people that could move into a place like that is very limited. But the big problem, as I saw it from an outsider looking in for all these years, is the labor shortage and the instability of keeping employees working in those fields. My mother would just get used to somebody and then they would quit, and then somebody else would come in from the Ivory Coast or from Nigeria or wherever it was, and then they would stay for a year or two and then they would move on. And this was very upsetting to her. And I think the older you get, the more dependent you become on the people that take care of you psychologically, more dependent. And so I think that was, and I don't know, there is no answer for that, because whether you stay in your home and you get home instead and people come, it's always different people, and they move on as, as the need gets greater in the field and the cost of paying these people keeps going up and up and up. It's especially in this area, we have lots of senior care facilities and not enough people to take care of those residents, unfortunately.
Hello?
Yeah, I believe you're quite right. The staff turnover is probably huge, and it doesn't matter whether you're in a assisted living facility or at home trying to find personal service. And I don't know what the answer to that is, and personally, I don't think that's going to be solved in the near future. So it doesn't matter where you live. If you need that service, you're going to have the problem you just mentioned.
Hello there. This is Dan.
Yes, Dan.
I'm out here somewhere, if you can see me.
Go ahead.
Okay. Any of you who are with me, thanks to Craig when I shared, you already know me better than I know myself, but I'll ask you a couple of questions. One, Maris Grove, the 90% issue. I've heard in different places, yes, some get back their 90%, some do not. I'd like, and I'm sure part of it has to do with, do you spend time in Rose Court or whatever, but does anyone have any input on that, on whether that is a valid number or not?
Well, when you decide to move into any of these communities, I'm sure all of them require a contract. And in the case of Maris Grove, we signed a contract that states that we will get 90% of our initial deposit back, either in an escrow account after you die. Now, as far as others, I'm not sure if they, or what kind of a contract you can sign in those places.
Karen, can I add something? Dan, this is Gary's wife, Barbara. in regards to that 90%, that's provided it's not used up for medical services.
Right.
Or that you run out of money and they need to tap into that. So it's a guarantee, but there's always, but if
How
you don't
big-
use it up for some other reason.
Is that butt in bold print, or how big a butt is that, so to speak? That's a bad way to put it, but to what extent does it get used up typically?
Say that again?
How frequently do you think it does get used up? I know you don't have an answer, but just from the word on the street, so to speak, do people walk out of there with 50% or 30% or 80% typically?
I couldn't answer that question honestly, because I really don't know.
I'm a dog lover. What's the pet? Can you have pets at these places?
You can have pets if you have a cottage, if you have a cottage or a first floor apartment. Dogs, cats, you can have them any place.
Yeah, in Marist Grove, you're allowed to have dogs and cats, maybe some other animal. I rather doubt you can have a horse because there's nowhere to keep it, but dogs and cats are welcome.
Dr. Young has a great cat.
Yeah, dogs on the first floor of the 3 floors and a cat anywhere. And we have a cat and like him very much. Why, our place, there is no down payment coming in. That's one of the advantages. You used to count on you needed to sell a decent house to get the down payment to get in. At our place, you don't pay any down payments, more like rent. And the monthly payments, I think I paid maybe $4,000 for myself and $1,000 for Louisa. So there's nothing to get back. There were 2 things that I liked about our place, and I'll make them quick. One is underground parking. It was one of the really blessings of the whole time we've been there, that rain or shine, snow or whatever, you could pull in and take your time. The other thing is, and this is one difference between our place and Bellingham, the person who built Bellingham built our place. He made 2 changes in our place. One, to have the laundry equipment in every apartment rather than down the hall, and also the underground parking, which Bellingham didn't have.
Can I ask one more?
Dan, let me finish answering this question about pets. In our age 55 community, people have dogs and cats. If you take your dog out for a walk, it has to be on a leash. You're not allowed to have horses or goats or elephants or anything like that.
That's why I didn't move there.
And I'll just add that we moved in, in our early 60s, but we are on the waiting list at Marist Grove also. But we're waiting until the time is right for us.
Thank you. What else, Dan?
I'm thinking of the different approaches to this type of living. When I was working, you'd put together models, so to speak, and we seem to have different models here in terms of, in some place you give everything away and they take care of you until you're with the Lord. In other cases, you give less at the beginning, but perhaps there's less guaranteed as time goes on. And part of it depends on your net worth at the beginning and what it's going to be at the end, whatever. I just like, input from anyone who wants to share. What do you think about these different models and what makes the most sense under what circumstances?
I think the answer to Dan's question is, it all depends. It's a very personal decision. No one model fits everybody, in my opinion, because we all have different things that are important to us, the different lifestyles. You know, I heard, I think Dr. Young said Maris Grove has too many people. It's too big.
Yeah.
I've heard that from other people. Other people would say, well, Wellington isn't big enough. I would like a larger community to be involved. The variables are so varied, Dan. You have to really study it yourself, you and your spouse, as to what are the attributes that are best suited for your situation. Because what suits my situation and Cheryl's may not be the same as what fits somebody else's situation, or what their likes are or their dislikes. So it's a question that all of us, I would guess, ask ourselves and others at times. Well, what do you think I should do? Well, I can't tell you what to do. All I can do is tell you why I like something and why I don't like something. If that happens to meld with what your views are, that's good. If it doesn't, you've learned something also. What I don't like what Ted likes if he wants a big community versus a small. So it takes a lot of soul searching and back and forth with your spouse as to what do you really want.
This is my last question. Why isn't life easier?
That's a good question.
And the other concern is, when do you make the decision? I mean, some people can make it too late, and you know, you can be in serious health situation, and then you have to really scramble, and that's tough. So,
Craig, it's also a decision you need to talk with your family about. You know, do the kids expect a big inheritance, or are they the ones that slap the bumper sticker on your car that I'm spending my kid's inheritance? Or, you know, and maybe they want you to move in with them. Maybe you can. You know, so you got to involve more than just you and your spouse in this.
Yeah,
That's true. It's a good thing to talk to the rest of your family about that decision, but I won't base my opinion or my decision on what my children think I should do. I will consider it, but it won't be the last word.
Amen.
anybody else want to make a final comment? Well, we thank you. Thank you all for participating, really giving us great insights and something to think about. So thanks very much.
Thank you.